Well, I'm Mark Segerstrom with the Nebraska Department of Transportation Highway Safety Office, and I'd like to start by thanking everyone for attending this statewide kickoff for the Click It or Ticket campaign. Presently, with the bad weather that we're having across Nebraska, there's never more of a reason to buckle up than today in bad weather or every day, every trip. I'd like to thank, of course, Chief Thomas Schingle, and also for Captain Brian Wasson for hosting us here today in Scottsbluff. I'd also like to thank Sheriff Mark Overman for being here, and NSP Captain Kurt von Minden. Thank you so much. We also have today for a demonstration, we have Trooper Flick with the seatbelt convincer, and we have Jesse Luron and Bobby Coleman with a child passenger safety demonstration as well. The Thanksgiving holiday is one of the busiest seasons of the year on American roads, and with millions of drivers going to grandma's house, friend's house for a dinner, and it's never more important to bring up the buckle up message. To keep drivers and passengers safe, the Nebraska Department of Transportation Highway Safety Office is partnering with law enforcement around the state and locally to share the Click It or Ticket message. Just last week, Papillion Police Chief Scott Lyons said that the modern driving experience is infected by speed, impatience, and distraction. The result, the police chief said, is a generation of drivers who aren't learning about safe, defensive driving because they aren't seeing their parents and peers perform those behaviors. During the 2017 Thanksgiving weekend, 365 fatalities occurred nationally. In Nebraska, 66% of our fatalities last year were unbuckled, and 2/3 of those fatalities occurred in rural communities. The majority of these deaths could have been prevented with the simple clicking of the seatbelt. If you're ejected from a vehicle, the odds that you survive that are not in your favor. 8 out of 10, or 83% of ejected passengers from vehicles were killed in 2017. There also seems to be a misconception about pickup safety. Just because pickup trucks are larger, drivers and occupants feel more safe in those. However, the numbers tell a different story. 59% of pickup truck occupants were killed in 2017 as compared to 42% of passenger car occupants. I'd like to share 2 stories with you. These boards that we have behind us, this first board, Mike was driving down the road, minding his own business when he got rear-ended at 65 miles an hour and his vehicle rolled 2 times. Mike survived this crash. He walked away from this crash not because he was lucky, but because he was wearing his seatbelt. Terry, with this crash over here, Terry was in the front seat passenger side of this vehicle. Her husband was driving and her 3 children were buckled in the back seat. They crested a hill in eastern Nebraska when they met another vehicle in their lane, and you can see the damage that was caused to this vehicle. Terry's husband was able to get out of the car and get the 3 children out safely, but she needed first responders to help get her out, and she was life-flighted to a hospital in Lincoln. All 5 family members survived this crash because they were buckled up. Last year, over 500 law enforcement officers participated in Nebraska's Click It or Ticket mobilization. The campaign yielded 152 seatbelt citations, 54 DUI arrests, 109 driving under suspension arrest citations, and 113 uninsured motorist citations. It is my greatest hope that during this Thanksgiving time, when we're thinking about getting together with family, that we also share the Click It or Ticket message. And with the weather that we have outdoors here in Nebraska, it's always important, please, to buckle up every trip, every time. Thank you. So with that, I'd like to pass these mics over to Chief Thomas Schingle. And Chief, if you could share with us a few words about the importance of buckling up.
Certainly. Every day, emergency responders across the country respond to vehicle accidents, and some wearing seatbelts, some not wearing seatbelts. One of my personal experiences, I was about 15 years old traveling with my mom and sister back home. We were on a 4-lane highway, 65 mile an hour. And as we approached a small town, the speed limit dropped to 55. So my mom proceeds, drops to 55, and a car trying to cross the highway misjudged, and we T-boned them. Seeing it happening, my mom did a good job of trying to slow down as much as she could. So at impact, we were probably about 30, 35 miles an hour. We were all wearing our seatbelts. We all were uninjured, but the family that we hit, none of them were wearing seatbelts. And in fact, a small child was actually being held by the mother on the impact side of the vehicle. All 4 of the people in that vehicle were transported with injuries, and I'm not sure the entire result of that. But the point of that story is those of us wearing the seatbelts were not transported to the hospital, and those that were not wearing seatbelts were transported. So it's very important to wear your seatbelt so that you do not run the risk of being injured or even fatally injured. So I encourage everyone to wear their seatbelt at all times, no matter the weather, road conditions, no matter the distance to the store, across the country. It doesn't matter. Always put on that seatbelt. Thank you.
Thank you. Captain Wasson.
I would reiterate what Tom says. The data surely shows that the risk of serious bodily injury and death is greatly reduced by the use of seatbelts. The City of Scottsbluff Police Department participates in this annually, and numerous officers spend extra time on the road focusing on the types of violations that lead to the lack of the use of seatbelts. And we're appreciative of the state for providing the resources to allow us to do that.
Thank you, Captain. And Sheriff Overman.
One of the worst parts of my job is having to be the bearer of bad news for a lot of things that happen, and that includes a lot of fatalities that take place in our county. And far too many of them are avoidable, completely avoidable. And I just off of the top of my head, without really diving deep into the data, I can think of about a dozen instances in the last 8 years where we have had to deliver the worst news that a family can imagine, that one of their loved ones, and especially most of these instances was young people under the age of 21 that were killed in a traffic accident that we believe, the first responders believe, these people would not have been killed had they been wearing a seatbelt. You can keep everything else the same. If there was alcohol involved, if there was a car run off the road, a collision, whatever, just the seatbelt would have saved their lives. The most recent thing just happened within the last couple of weeks, and I get a call from one of my deputies very early in the morning. It responded to a report of a car in a field with the lights on. And we get out there, and there's a fatality, a young man. So his life is over, his family's life has changed forever. And my deputy says to me, you know, Sheriff, I've seen way worse rollovers than this, way worse wrecks that people walked away from that were wearing seatbelts. So that's my message. It's life-changing. You have somebody in your family dies, it changes your family's life forever. So just wear a seatbelt, and let's eliminate some of that.
Thank you. I have to echo what my public safety partners here have already gone through, and just to say that in a 21-year career with the State Patrol, I've worked numerous wrecks where the deciding factor in who walks away and who does not is your seatbelt. I can think of one right off the top of my head of a head-on collision years ago where the people that had seatbelts on all got out and walked away. The people that did not have their seatbelts on in the other vehicle did not get out and walk away and were hospitalized for very severe injuries. So especially on a day like today when it's snowing and blowing and the roads are slick and you can't count on everything being dry and safe, please put your seat belts on and get to where you're going safely. Thanks.